Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Kesubos Daf Daled. We are holding on Daf Gimel Amid Beis. Perhaps let's go back to the fourth line from the bottom of the Amid, Kiddush. So, for the last couple of days, we have been learning about a designated date for weddings. A basula gets married on a Wednesday, except when we have some exceptional circumstances, in which case we allow for some flexibility. We have an oinus, which requires marriage on Monday. That's okay. What type of oinus, what type of situation are we speaking about? So the upcoming brisa will describe a case where, look, they're in the midst of preparing for this wedding, preparing the food, and suddenly tragedy strikes the family. One of the parents passes away. How do you accommodate both concerns? On the one hand, you can't just postpone this wedding indefinitely, or the food will spoil. That's a concern. On the other hand, we can't just delay the burial. There's kavod hames involved. So how do we accommodate both concerns? The beis ha'avil and the beis hamishta. We allow advancement of that wedding from Wednesday all the way back till Monday. Some Mepharshim learn even Sunday, if necessary. So if this fellow passes away today is Sunday, we go ahead with the wedding. Others learn, no, we need at least, Chachamim require at least 1 day of proper preparation for this wedding. We don't want a wedding to take place on a Sunday with inadequate preparation. So in any case, whichever it is, Monday or even back to Sunday, the point is we're trying to accommodate the mace and at the same time the chassan v'kala. So the brisa here will describe an interesting interplay between the Avelus and the Simchas Nesuin, the Beis Ha'avel and the Beis Hamishta. Interestingly enough, recently I was at a tahara of a nifter, and I encountered the wonderful members of the Chevra Kadisha who so selflessly give away all that time and put in so much effort to do Chesed Shalemis. In any case, one of the members there was a Yid who actually, unbeknownst to me, first time I even knew that he was involved in this, he's also the main caterer in town, here in Toronto. So I was just struck by that, oddity, and I turned to him, I said, Rabbi Yid, you get to see everything. You get to see the entire life cycle. The Beis Ha'avel and the Beis Hamishta. It must be an inspiring experience to take part in, the entire gamut of that Jewish life cycle experience. So in any case, we have a story where the chassan and kala are preparing for their wedding, happiest day of their lives, and suddenly there was a mace. Says the Gemara 4 lines from the bottom, Kedesanya. The brisa says like this: Harei shehaya pitay afoi. So the bread was already baked, v'tivchay tevuach, and its animals were shechted, the meat was prepared, v'yeinei mazak, wine was diluted and ready for serving. So the wedding is almost prepared. Umeis aviv shel chassan, the father of the chassan passes away, or ima shel kala, or mother of the kala. Now, as Rashi explains, based on the Gemara soon, these are the people who are going to invest their efforts in preparing this wedding properly, and if they're not here, who's going to take care of it if this food goes bad? So we have to accommodate the chassan and kala. At the same time, we can't just postpone the kvura indefinitely. So what do? Says the brisa, machnisin es hameis lecheder. First, we take the mace out of the way. It can't be, in their presence. They can't just, ignore the mace and go about their business. So we take the mace, we put them into a side room, out of sight. And then we proceed with the wedding. So the chiddush here is that even if it's on a Monday, which is typically not your besula wedding day, we allow advancement of that wedding to accommodate the circumstance. So the mace is in the cheder, and then we go ahead, v'esa chassan, v'esa kala, we bring them, l'chuppah, u'boil, bilas mitzvah, they interact. First time it's bilas mitzvah, Tais explains, because it leads to pru revu, u'pirish, and that's it, one interaction, but afterwards they're considered avelim, and they're asr and tashmish amita. First comes the 7 days of what we call the Sheva Brachas. That comes first. Because after all, the wedding took priority. So that triggers the Shivas Yimei Mishta. They come first. Even though, of course, the mace has been buried already. Right? So after the Bilas Mitzvah, they cover the mace. Then they start their Shivas Yimei Mishta. V'achakach, and afterwards, Noyeg, they observe Shiva Simi Avelis, whoever it is, the Chassan or Kala, whoever the Avel is, he will be Noyeg, the Shiva Simi Avelis. V'chal Oysan Hayamim. Now, throughout all those days, the 7 Yimei Mishta, the 7 Yimei Avelis, Hu Yashin Ben HaNoshim, the Chassan sleeps amongst the men, V'hi Yishena Ben HaNoshim, and she amongst the women. Basically, there is no Yichud allowed. Why? Because he's an Avel. An Avel cannot interact with his wife as married. So we do not allow Yichud throughout that period. Now, although typically an Avel doesn't adorn himself, doesn't apply makeup, but here it's a fresh Kala, we allow her to apply makeup for the first 30 days after the wedding. Why? So that she doesn't lose favor in his eyes. V'davka, so this is the Bryce. Continues the Gemara. V'davka avav shel chasan or ima shel kala. This whole allowance, this kula, to sort of ignore the mace for the time being, proceed with the wedding, and then only come back to the avelis. That is allowed when we are concerned that there will be no proper wedding afterwards. If we lose this opportunity, all this preparation, all this food is going to go to waste. It's going to get spoiled. And the father of the chassan, who is typically the one to invest effort in preparing for the son's wedding, or conversely, the mother of the kala, who's there for her daughter. She helps her with tachshitim, with cosmetics, with jewelry. If they're not here, then they're going to lose out, and we're sensitive to that. There will be nobody else to step into their shoes and to take over for the father of the chassan and mother of the kala. And therefore we accommodate the chassan and kala, we allow them to proceed. But if it's the other way around, the father of the kala or the mother of the chassan, they're not so heavily invested in wedding preparations, and in that case we don't allow for this leeway. We just do the avelis first, and then we go ahead and re-prepare for the upcoming wedding. Okay, let's perhaps take a look at Rashi inside. So back on Gimel Amud Beis, where the lines widen, it's that first wide line, Kiddes Sanya. Chassan shemeis avav b'sheni. So the father of the chassan passes away on Monday. V'ein yochel lahamtin ad lamachar. And they can't wait until the next day. Because you're going to have to leave the mace unburied until the chuppah. So therefore we allow advancement of the wedding, get married today, even though it's a Monday. The Brisa goes on to describe the whole story. V'yein and mazuk, there was all the food prepared. Wine was already diluted. B'mayim shuroi l'shtiyah. V'shuvenim eskayim. At that point, it just spoils if it's not consumed. Avav shel chassan died, oyem shel kala. And Rashi says that the Brisa is being very specific. Dafka nakat. Avav shel chassan, because he's the one that's going to be tereach. Shehu ha-tereach b'tzorech yisuda. Likewise, ima shel kala, hiya mechina l'tachshitin. She looks after her daughter's jewelry and cosmetics. Lefichach mi'avar ha-moed. So if you're going to let the time pass by, Shuv ein meichen lehem. Nobody will come and step forward and take their place. So therefore we allow the wedding to proceed. They put the mace on the side without burial, because otherwise if you bury him, automatically Avelis will descend upon the Avel when they close up the Arain, because it'll come on, as the Gemara later will explain. It's going to be too late for a wedding. He will no longer be able to marry until he's finished Avelis. And by that time, everything will have been spoiled, and He'll have to start from scratch, and there's nobody to help him. Uboil, right? Boil bilas mitzvah upirish. Says Rashi upirish. V'yikbrus hameis miyad. They proceed to kvura, and then they go to Sheva brachas. The kivan the chala olav chasana, since the wedding was now initiated. Havi legabe kiregel. For the chasan and kala, it's like a yomtiv, and that preempts the avelus. That takes priority. V'lo osio avelus, and avelus can't come along and interfere. V'chayla. V'noyik shivas yimei mishta. That explains the halacha of the brisa. First comes the shivas yimei mishta, and later on the avelus. V'chaloisin ayama, throughout all those days, shel yimei mishta, shel avelus. We're here, we're technically he's an avel. So although it's a regal, that's pertaining to a public display of Avelis. You shouldn't do that during the regal. But private observance of Avelis is in place even though he's during his Sheva brachas. Therefore, there's no yichud allowed between the Chassan and Kala concerned about them succumbing to temptation. Hu yashin, ve'en misechten zem zeh shema yiva, va'avel aser b'tashon shamitu k'delfina b'ela magalchet. Asks Rashi Akasha, va'af b'shivas yimei mishta shein keregel. I thought it's happy time. It's shivas yimei mishta. It's like a regal. Still, noyeg hu avelos shel divrei tzina. Oh, tashon shamitu is something but tzina, and that he has to keep. Dahainu iser tashmish kidul kama ve'ein moinen. Although they're observing avelos, we do not withhold the tachshiten from the kalam. B'shvil avelos ein oisrin is aleh tachshiten. Why? We're sensitive to the shalom bayis component. Shlik tisgana al bala. We don't want her to lose favor in the eyes of her fresh husband. Kol shleishim yoyim v'avol b'sheini me'avelos. U'shar b'nei adam, typically one observes avelos for 30 days. V'kol shkem shleishim be'elach. So until 30 days, we even allow this, and certainly after 30 days, which is lesser in terms of avelos, she's allowed to apply cosmetics. But this is only when the main players will no longer be with them. Father of Chassan, mother of Kala. Because if not for them, who's gonna take their place and prepare for this wedding? If everything goes bad and they spoil their food, they won't have anybody to take care of it. So we allow this kula. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rav from Rav Papa, Amar Rav Chisda. Let's keep in mind, this is a special heter. Do the wedding, ignore the maze, and come back to the maze. That's a special heter due to these special circumstances. Because the food is going to spoil, and there's nobody to make up for it. Amar Rav from Rav Papa, Rav Chisda, Leishano, this halacha is only allowed if Ela shanasan mayim al gabi basar. If the meat has already been rinsed, in which case it now has a very short shelf life and you can't really sell it. Either you consume it, either you serve it at the wedding, or it's gone. But if the meat has not yet been rinsed with water, mizdaben, you can just sell it. So there's no reason to allow for this wedding. You'll sell it and rebuy it later. Amar Rava ubekrach, but if it's a large city, lots of customers, they'll buy anything. Even if the meat has already been rinsed, there's not much loss there. You'll sell it and then reacquire meat later after the avilas. Amar Papa, on the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, you have the small villages. Ubekfar, a small village where there are very few customers. Even if you did not yet rinse that meat, you can't sell it. So then there's a hefsed involved, and you have to do the wedding. So in a large city, either way, just sell it off. In a small town, either way, you can't sell it. So the kasha is, Rav Chisda says, well, it depends whether you rinsed it or not. Where is he speaking? In a large city, it doesn't matter. In a small town, it doesn't matter. When does that apply? Amar of Ashi, a medium-sized city. Kigai, for instance, Masa Machasya. The Mafka Mikrach, it's not a large city. Umapka Mikfar, but it's not really classified as a small town. It's something in the middle. So over there, you have some demand, some customers, more than the village, but less than the city, in which case it depends on the quality. If it's been rinsed, it's already gotten to that point. You're not going to find much customers, and therefore, go ahead with the wedding. But otherwise, just sell it and redo everything later. Tanik Vasid Rav Chizda. We have a right to Rav Chizda's interpretation of things, that basically you need two conditions met before we allow for this halacha to take place. Number one, the food's going to spoil. Number two, the person who's going to mastermind the wedding preparations, be it on the chassan side pertaining to the food, or on the kala side pertaining to her personal preparations, that person will no longer be with us to tend to their needs. So once you have those two conditions met, we allow this procedure. The raya is from the Brisa. Bread was prepared, the meat was prepared, the wine was prepared, and the meat has already been rinsed, in effect making it susceptible to spoilage. And then these fellows passed away. We allow for this procedure. We put the mace in the side room. We proceed with the wedding. So one interaction, but afterwards they have to separate because, as we explained, Avelos in private must be observed. They observe the 7 Yimei HaMishta, as Rashi said before, because the Chasana comes first. And then they proceed to Avelos. Throughout this entire period, there is no yichud allowed between the chassan and kala. Hu yashen ben anoshim. He sleeps with the men. V'ishti yishena ben anoshim. And likewise, the kala sleeps with the women. V'chein. The Brisa adds that the same idea, this yichud concern, applies not only when Avelus is at play. V'chein mishapirsa ishtanida. Likewise, if his fresh wife becomes a nida, we're concerned about yichud. They might succumb to temptation, and therefore we separate them. Hu yashin ben anoshim. He sleeps with the men. V'hi yishena ben anoshim. Likewise, she with the women. The Brisa continues. Ve'ein moinen tachshitin min akala kol amad yoim. The first 30 days of marriage, she can adorn herself. Unlike, in contrast to a regular avela, because we're concerned about finding favor in her husband's eyes. Benkach or benkach, whether it's a conventional marriage or an unconventional situation like an oinus that we discussed, either way, these halachas pertain to all circumstances. Lo yival, his first interaction with his kal should not take place lo b'erev Shabbos, v'lo b'matzei Shabbos, not an erev Shabbos or matzei Shabbos, as the Gemara later will explain. Amar, let's go back and review the Brisa, which says we don't allow them to spend time privately. Hu yashin ben anoshim, vi yishena ben anoshim. Misayeh alei Rabbi Yehuda. This is right to Rabbi Yehuda. And the Amar Rabbi Yehuda, aval b'she amrein avelos b'mayid. Although on Yom Tov we don't observe avelos, aval dvarim shel tzina nayik. That's all pertaining to public display of avelos, but a private observance is implemented even during Yom Tov here as well, although it's their regal, it's their Yom Tov, their private time of celebration. But dvarim shel tzina, for instance, tashon shamita, interacting as married, that's asur during this period. And that's why we don't allow yichud between the chassan and the kala. Darash Rav Yosef Brei de Rava. He said in the name of Mishmei de Rava, Lo Yishanu, this whole concern. Meaning, this Isur Yichud, is only Ella, Shalei Baal, if he did not yet interact with his Kala. So then there's a concern that they might succumb to temptation. Aval Baal, but if he has already interacted with her once. In this case, we're not concerned about succumbing to temptation. We allow yichud. Ishta yeshena imay. His wife can sleep together with him. There's no concern of yichud. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? You're telling me that an avel can be misyached with his wife, provided it's not their first time together? Take a look at the brisa. What are we speaking about? A fresh chasm lekala. After they were boil bilas mitzvah, meaning there was already one interaction. What does the brisa say? We do not allow yichud. We're concerned about michshel, about us succumbing to temptation. So how can Rava tell us, well, if it's already after that first interaction, there's no concern, there's no strong yetzer. But in our case, in our brisa, we are certainly speaking that there was already an interaction, as the brisa clearly tells us, uboyel bilas mitzvah, and still, uktani, what does the brisa tell us regarding yichud? We separate them. Hu yashin ben hanoshim, he yashena ben hanoshim. We have to separate them. Oh, kika ma Rava. Sure, big difference. Rava was speaking apirsa ishte nida. Oh. When Rava gives us this kula, he says, well, if it's already past that first interaction, don't worry about yichud. That's if it's kala turned a nida. A nida is so chamer, so severe in our eyes. It carries a possible kares. Everybody keeps away from the nida. So as long as the yetzer is not so strong, it's already after that first interaction, there's no isur yichud. But by avelos, it doesn't have the same value, the same severity. And over there's an isur yichud regardless. Asks the Gemara, v'chein ketani. But take a look at this brisa again. First we discussed avelos. We said, no yichud. Right? They have to sleep separate. And then the brisa says, v'chein. The same exact concept is applied to an isha nida. Right? And if nida mirrors, if it matches the avelos is speaking after Baal. So how can we say, well, by nida there's no concern if there was already a Baal? The entire brisa is speaking that they already interacted once. Answers the Gemara. Hachikamar. When the brisa compares nida to avelos, it means like this: when there was no Baal, v'chein misha pirsa ishtei nida v'loi Baal. We're sort of making a shifting tracks. True. First part of the brisa by avelos is speaking after bilas mitzvah. Second part of the brisa, which says that the same halacha applies to the nida, is speaking when there was no interaction. So in that case, by a nida there is isur yichud. Hachi kamar v'chein misha pirsa ishtei nida v'loi Baal. If his wife is a nida, and it's still before their first interaction, where the yetzer is very strong, there is an isur yichud. Hu yashein ben hanoshim v'ishta yishena ben hanoshim. So there they have to be separate. So bottom line is, at this point in the Gemara we figure that a nida is more chamer. People keep away from a nida much more than avelos. So the first part of the brisa speaks about an avel, even after they've been together, still there's isur yichud. Then the brisa continues and shifts over to nida. When is there a isur yichud? By nida as well. That's only when there was a loy Baal. So you hadn't had that first experience, in which case we're concerned about succumbing to temptation. So by nida, we give them that discount. If it's already after that first experience, there's no isur yichud. By avelos, there's always isur yichud. Lemema, do you mean to say that avelos kila le minida? That a person is inclined to take the isur of avelos more lightly than nida, and that's why by an avel there's always isur yichud, and by nida, not necessarily. Is that so? We actually find just the opposite. There are very many tasks that an isha will do for her husband. So that's okay, even for a nida. Nida oisel bala. Even a nida could perform those tasks, except for three things, which are expressions of endearment and might lead to further interaction, inappropriate interaction. Chutz, except for serving him a drink, making his bed, rinsing him, even without touching him. But that's a chavivus. Rashi says it's derech kiruv v'chibahin, and it can lead to inappropriate interaction. So that's by who? By anida. Just to keep away. Vilu gabi avelus tanya. But when there's avelus involved, we don't have these restrictions. Bryce says, even though Chachamim tell us the husband can't impose on his wife to look her best when she's in a state of mourning. He can't force her lias kechelas to apply the eye makeup, lias pekesas, the face makeup. You got to be a mensch. How could you expect your wife to disregard her state of avelus? So that's true. But be'emes amru, it's an accepted halacha that what? We don't have these restrictions like by anida. She can serve him. She can make his bed. She can rinse him. Here it sounds like avelus entails less concern. Look, we allow all these interactions. In contrast to nida, we were more careful. We require separation to a greater extent. So you see that a person is more inclined to keep away by avelus than by nida. And how can you tell me otherwise? You're telling me that by avelus there's an isur yichud because an isur tashmish generates isur yichud, but by nida, don't worry about it. He's not going to get near. And here we seem to see the opposite. Like Kasha, the answer is it depends. It depends who is the aval, him or her. Kan ba avelus day. When we speak about Isur Yichud during the point of Avelus, that's when who's experiencing Avelus? Whose relative died? His relative died. He might disregard his Avelus and interact with her inappropriately. That's why we apply Isur Yichud. Kan ba'Avelus da. But the most recent brisa, where we seem to see that Avelus is a lesser concern, that's because she's experiencing avelus. And overall, she's less motivated to interact with her husband. It's more of a man's thing, and bigger yetzer are involved. The Rasha says, on top of that, when the Isha is experiencing her own personal mourning, it touches her deeply, and she's in no mood for this interaction. Therefore, it carries a lesser concern of inappropriateness. So that's the conclusion. Depends who's the aval. So again, when there was no interaction between the man and the woman, loy baal, then there's an isur yichud, regardless of whether she's a nida or there's an avelus involved, because the yetzer is too strong. But if there has been an interaction between them, so things have sort of calmed down. In that case, by nida, no concern. By avelus, it depends. He's the aval, it's still a concern. And therefore there's an isur yichud. If she's the aval, there's no concern. Asks the Gemara, how can you suppose that brisa, an Amar Aleph, which describes the avelim sleeping separately, indicating there is an isur yichud, is strictly when he's the aval? The brisa clearly describes two separate scenarios. His father passes away, so he's the aval, or her mother passed away, so she's the aval. So she's the aval, and still there's an isur yichud that doesn't fit your view of things. You're telling me that when the isha is a aval, no concern. Kiktani. Asha'ara. Answers the Gemara. True, the Brisa describes a case where the Imo Shel Kala passed away, but that's not pertaining to this specific halacha of yichud. That doesn't apply in that case. When she's an aval, don't worry about yichud. It's pertaining to the other halachas, that they put the mace on the side, etc., etc. That's why the Brisa discusses it. But yichud, not applicable when she's an aval. Only when he's the aval. Really? Umi shani ben avelos dei. Is it really such a big difference? If he's the aval or she, vatanya. Listen to the next price. So his fellow's father-in-law or mother-in-law passed away. He has to treat his wife sensitively. They can't force his wife to look her best, to adorn herself. Ella, join her experience. Empathize with her. Ella kaifa mitasai. He overturns his bed, which was one of the things they used to do. V'noigim avelis, and experience the avelis with her. Likewise, on her side, if her father-in-law or mother-in-law passed away, so it's not really her relative, she has no chiv avelis, still join your husband. She can't adorn herself. Rather, she overturns her bed. And she experiences avelis with him. And you see no chiluk in this price between one case and the other. It seems to make no difference whether he's the aval or she's the aval pertaining to Isser Yichud. Apparently, people keep away when they are avalim. Apparently, there is no Isser Yichud by avelis, irrespective of who the aval is. That's not consistent with what we said before. And says the Gemara, we'll add it to the Brisa Tzni, just make an addition. But avelos did day, when he's the aval, then we separate them. Hu yashin ben hanoshim, v'ishta yishena ben hanoshim, they have to sleep separately. Because he's the aval and he might succumb, but if she's the aval, don't worry. How could you say that? V'havachein ketani. Take a look at the Brisa. We have one case where she's the aval, right? And the Brisa continues, V'chein hi shemes chamiha oichamoisa. Sorry, the first case, his father-in-law passed away, so she's the aval, right? And then we have a chen, likewise, her father-in-law passed away, so he is the aval. The Brisa just packages it all together without any indication whatsoever that there should be any difference between the two cases. Answers the Gemara, because the Brisa is not discussing yichud. In terms of the other halachas, kichel and pirchas, adorning and applying cosmetics, it's all one and the same. It doesn't matter who the aval is. But certainly pertaining to yichud, there will be that distinction. Asks the Gemara, but take a look at the lashon of the Brisa again. It says, she has to observe avelos imay with him. My love, apparently that means imay b'mita, they're together in the same bed, meaning, like husband and wife. There's no isur yichud whatsoever. No, that's not what the Brisa means. Imay b'bayis, they're together in the same home. The Brisa is telling you when does wife have to join husband's avelos, even though it's not her relative. She has to show respect to her husband when she's together with him in his presence. That's all the Brisa is saying. The Amar le, Rav l'Chia Brei, Rav tells his son Chia, ba'apa, when your wife is an avel, in her presence, no gavilusa, you too, go ahead and observe avelos. Delay ba'apa, but if it's not in her presence, she's anyways not there to see. Leitina gavilusa, there's no need to do avelos. Let's go to Rashi, right over here at the left. Lo ima b'bayis, v'tayim alav mishum mehemen nakatla. I'm not speaking about ne'emonos, about being trusted regarding interaction, regarding yichud. That's not the topic here. El Ashmi, the Brisa is simply telling you like this: De'ein avelusa mutal aleho ela b'fanav. When is she going to share in his avelos? When he's watching, when it's in his presence. The whole idea is to respect him, to show kavod. V'chein hu, likewise on his side. Ein avelusa mutal olav. Her avelos is not incumbent upon him. He doesn't have to join her. Ela lefaneh ulchvayda, unless it's there in front of her and adds covet to her. So we're not discussing, yichud or being in private. That's not the topic of discussion. By the way, the Shulchan Aruch brings the name of Rishonim that we don't really do, avelus for a non-relative. If it's a spouse's relative or a parent's relative, we don't have to really take part in it. So some Rishonim say that, and I think the Shulchan Aruch says you do it, but the Ramah says that it's not done. And in fact, whoever does it is min ha'matzmiim. It's just totally out of sync. But he brings that some anoyeg miktsas. They do some. They incorporate some minor elements of avelus into their lives in the presence of their spouse or their relative who is sitting shiva. Now, regarding halacha l'maisa, the Ramah actually brings the name of many Rishonim that we don't really observe this today. The whole idea of sharing a relative's avelus, l'chvoidoi, is not really done today. We assume the relatives are meichel. In fact, he brings whoever insists on doing this is min ha'matzmiim, he calls it. It's something totally out of sync. But he still brings that there is a minig amongst some to actually incorporate some minor elements of avelus, mixas avelus, to show kavod for the avel. So recently, my wife's grandfather had passed away. There was a question of her going to a wedding. I discussed it with Rav Shlomo Miller, the Rosh Kollel of the Kollel here, and initially he was just chuckling. He said, it's not a minig, it's not something which needs to be done. But then he said that, if you can incorporate some mixas avelus, shorten your stay at the wedding, or don't have the meal there, then it would be acceptable. So that's the going minig. Of course, advisable to consult a rav when lo yaleinu it would be applicable. Continues the Gemara. Rav Ashi Amar. You see, Rav Ashi is going to disagree with Rava. The Gemara up until now was working with the assumption that there's a difference between whether he is the avel or she is the avel. That was the working assumption. So when he's the avel, there's an Isser Yichud. He might succumb to temptation. Keep away from your wife. When she's the avel, no concern. Rav Ashi Amar, he disagrees. He says, typically, there is no Isser Yichud by an avel. The kasha is, why don't we allow the chassan and kala to stay together? Why does the Brisa say he goes with the men, she with the women? Rav Ashi Amar, how could you compare? This is a special circumstance. Mika medamis. How could you compare avelusa dehacha, the avelus, being described in our Gemara, la avelusa de alma, to the typical avelus? Avelus de alma chamer. Typically, avelus is something that people take seriously. There's no need to separate people. They know how to behave. Nobody's going to take it lightly. And there's no Isser Yichud, as opposed to avelus dehacha, our avelus circumstance is so different. Why? Since the Chachamim applied a kula to this particular situation, perhaps that would lead to a person being lax, taking it lightly, not taking it seriously enough. They might be mezalzel. Therefore, we require separation. Asks the Gemara, my kula, what type of kula was applied in our case that you're concerned about? Is it because it says boil bilas mitzvah perish, they can interact as married, and then we tend to the mace? Is that the kula, that we sort of give priority to them over the mace? That lends to perhaps a perception of zilzal on the avelus? Not so. Hasam mishum delechal avelus. The reason why we allowed the bilas mitzvah before the kfur is because there was not yet avelus at this point. You know when avelus kicks in? According to Rabbi Lezer, avelus starts when they take the mace out of their home, which hadn't happened in this case. According to Rabbi Shua, until you close up the arain. The fact that we allowed them to do bilas mitzvah is not a kula. It's still before the avelus was triggered. Ela diktani, rather the kula is because it says noyag shivas yimei mishta. after the kfura, what goes first? Shivas Yimei HaMishta take priority, and only then, v'achakach noig Shivas Yimei HaVeilus, and then afterwards the Avelus. As Rashi explains for us, because the Nesuin is Chal, etc., but you know what, to the casual observer, it would appear perhaps like we're negating the Avelus, and because of that perception, we're concerned of a zolzol that might result, and due to that concern of laxity, we separate them, we apply Isur Yichud. But typically, there is never Isur Yichud by Avelus. So bottom line is, when is there Isur Yichud? Loi Baal, if they're newlyweds and they had not yet interacted as married, there's a stronger concern of succumbing to temptation. There's Isur Nida, then Yichud is applied. If there is Avelus, then Isur Yichud is applied as well. What if it's already past the first interaction? It was Baal. Nida poses no concern. Every husband and wife are fully Naman. Pertaining to Isur Nida, the Gemara says, Suga B'Sheishanim, Klal Yisrael is to be trusted pertaining to these things. Regarding Avelus. So according to approach number 1 in the Gemara, it depends who the Avel is. If it's his Avelus or her Avelus. Her Avelus, no concern. But his Avelus, there is a concern. According to Rav Ashi, which is approach number 2 in the Gemara, typically Avelus never would have Yichud under these circumstances. There's no Isur Yichud applied, except in our case where there is perhaps an appearance of a kula which might lead to zilzal, and that's why we apply Isur Yichud. Okay, so let's quickly recap the daf that we learned today. Typically, the Basula gets married on a Wednesday, but if there's an oinus, such as this type of case where 2 conditions have been met, wedding preparations are well underway, food's going to get spoiled if we don't expedite the wedding. And at the same time, the interested parties, the father of the chas, the mother of kala, are not here to come back and start anew. So when both conditions are there, we apply this kula. We're flexible regarding the wedding date. We advance it back till Monday, perhaps even to Sunday, as necessary. We discussed Isur Yichud, when it would apply, when it wouldn't. We also touched on the topic of Avelus a bit, and we discussed the Avelus of a relative. So if he's sitting Shiva, she should display kavod for him, and likewise, if she's the one who's an Avel, he should be Noig Avelus Befanea Mipnei Kvaida. B'suras Tevis to all of us, and Hatzlacha Rabbah.